In a social media statement, Allegheny County Police said that several agencies responded to U.S. Steel Clairton Coke Works. WPXI-TV reports that the Allegheny County Health Department was advising residents within 1 mile of the plant to remain indoors, close all windows and doors, set HVAC systems to recirculate, and avoid activities that draw in outside air, such as using exhaust fans. President Trump has declared a public emergency and announced a federal takeover of D.C.'s police department. Fox's Jared Halpern reports.
President Trump is deploying hundreds of National Guard troops and invoking a provision of federal law to take over temporarily Washington, D.C.'s police department.
Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged-out maniacs, and homeless people.
The president argues crime in D.C. is worse than other capital cities like Baghdad, Bogota, Colombia, and Mexico City. Police statistics show violent crime in D.C. is down 26% from a year ago after spiking in 2023. President Trump also says his administration will clear out homeless encampments and beautify the city. At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
President Trump has directed the Pentagon to consider military force to take down cartels smuggling drugs and people into America. Fox's William LaJeunesse reports.
It was in January that President Trump designated 8 cartels, including MS-13 and Venezuela's Tren de Aragua, as foreign terrorist organizations. Cartel members became enemy combatants and allowed for the use of military force. The question, how? The Navy intercepting ships carrying narcotics, special operations soldiers maybe targeting cartel leaders, or drone strikes on drug labs in Mexico.
It has nothing to do with Mexican territory. It has to do with their country.
Publicly, President Claudia Sheinbaum says Mexico will cooperate, but claims U.S. plans do not involve boots on the ground.
The operations involve members of the Department of Defense, Justice Department, Department of Homeland Security, Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and the Treasury. Once again, the Texas State House did not have a quorum today as Democrats continued to stay away from a GOP redistricting vote. This as Governor Greg Abbott has threatened a series of rolling special legislative sessions on redistricting. House Speaker Dustin Burrows.
Understand that we are keeping receipts for every gallon of gas, every mile traveled, and every hour of overtime associated with the pursuit of these missing members. Under Rule 5, Section 3 of the House Rules, those breaking quorum will be held financially responsible for the costs they've created, not the taxpayers. To those absent members, you can go to another city, another state, even another time zone, but you cannot escape your responsibility to the people of Texas. Eventually, you will be here.
The Texas House will meet again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Fox Weather says Tropical Storm Erin is to be the Atlantic's first hurricane of 2025 with major strengthening likely. Erin is currently located west of the Cabo Verde Islands and is currently being monitored by the Hurricane Center for further development. The forecast track shows the storm moving north of Puerto Rico by this weekend with gradual strengthening to a hurricane. Stay tuned. School bells are ringing and health experts are giving tips to protect the eyesight of children. More from Fox's Lisa Brady.
August is Children's Eye Health and Safety Month. The American Academy of Ophthalmology says children are susceptible to many vision and eye problems. The Rural Health Association of Tennessee says a key aspect of the Awareness Month is promoting routine eye exams because those regular checkups can identify common issues that could impact a child's learning and development if not treated, or worse, can lead to permanent vision impairment. It also stresses proper eye safety, like during sports and recreational activities. And one more part of the Awareness Month, the impact of digital screen time. With increased usage comes increased eye strain.
See more news at afn.net.
I am thoroughly looking forward to our Weekend with AFA coming up in October, where we're going to be able to meet our supporters like yourself, to fellowship, to visit our facilities here in Tupelo, and to have everyone come together for a wonderful weekend.
It's a Weekend with AFA, Thursday, October 2nd through Saturday, October 4th in Tupelo, Mississippi. Speakers will include Abraham Hamilton III, Jenna Ellis, Tim Barton, Tim Wildman, and more. Register at afa.net/weekend.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Nurse Mama Show, prescribing hope for healthy families here on American Family Radio. Here's your host, Professor, Pediatric Nurse Practitioner, and Mom of 4, Dr. Jessica Peck.
Well, hey there, friends, and welcome to my favorite time of day, getting to spend time with you, prescribing hope for healthy families. And happy Monday, everybody. How's your Monday going? I don't know about you, but my Monday is going pretty crazy. You know, I look back at those times when I was a young mom, and I felt like the days were so long, but the years were so short. And at that time, when I was a new mom, I would just want for my husband to come home at 5 o'clock. I would watch the clock and think, okay, at 5 o'clock, I can hand this baby off for a little bit. I might be able to take a shower or get a bite to eat or something like that. And I thought that those years were tough. But let me tell you, parenting young adults is definitely challenging. And what I've learned and what I'm learning as a mom is that it is a labor of love for the rest of your life, but there are definitely different stages where you need different kinds of support. And today we are talking about new moms. Now, you either have been a new mom, you are a new mom, or you know a new mom. And our prescription for hope today is supporting physical, spiritual, and emotional recovery for new moms. Now, it seems like it doesn't matter how much times change. The emotions that we have as new moms are kind of a universal language. And I found it so encouraging to talk to women who had babies before and would tell me it's going to be okay. This is going to be okay. But there's a certain kind of pressure and stress that comes with that, because I think especially now in a day of social media where you feel like everything has to be perfect. This is what you've wanted. This is so great. And so you kind of feel like you can't really talk about those struggles, because then what? Are you not happy as a new mom? All of those things. So we're going to talk to you today as families. How do we support new moms for physical, spiritual, and emotional recovery? The truth is, a new baby changes everything. But here's something that you may not know. Did you know about something called the fourth trimester? Well, that's just as important as the pregnancy itself. It's a time after the baby's born when a mom's body, mind, and spirit are healing, but she needs all of her people. She needs her family, her friends, her faith community close by. So today, I'm really excited to be talking with a fellow nurse, a postpartum nurse, Rachel Taylor, and she's going to share how can you be part of that circle of care and how your role could make a difference. Now, she has written a book called After Baby Comes: Physical, Spiritual, and Emotional Recovery for Postpartum Moms. I think this is a great resource to give to a new mom. So if you are going to a baby shower, if you have a baby gift, give the cute onesie, give the diaper genie or whatever it is that they're asking, but go ahead and stick a copy of this book in there too, because Rachel, as a nurse, speaks very specifically to moms about what happens to them physically, but also spiritually, emotionally, and relationally, and answers some of those questions that honestly, for me as a nurse, I find that a lot of moms are afraid to ask. And so if you are a new mom, if you know a new mom, I would really encourage you to get a copy of that resource. But today we're really going to talk more to those family support systems and how can we be the best village that we can when new life is brought into the world. So with all of that being said, Rachel, my fellow nurse, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Rachel, it's always exciting to me to talk to a nurse who also really stands so firmly on her faith and looks at the spiritual aspect of our health. And you speak so candidly about that. I would love to just hear a little bit more about your story and how you came through your journey of nursing to be on a platform of encouraging moms spiritually as well as physically.
Yeah, well, just myself, with my first baby, it ended up being so much harder than I anticipated it to be because I was a nurse. I was a postpartum nurse, and I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. Like, I'm going to be able to recover well. I know what to expect, all the things. And I got into it, and it really kicked my behind. And I was just like, my goodness, if I'm struggling this much, like, how are other mothers doing this? And I realized I really didn't know a whole lot and was not able to teach my patients a whole lot because of that. And so I just set out on this journey of it's time that we create some good, trusted resources that hit physical, emotional, and spiritual help for these moms, because they really, many moms struggle so much during this time, and they don't particularly know how to ask for help. And then the people around them don't really know how to help them either. So I'm hoping to change that.
I hope that you change that too. Rachel, this is our listeners will quickly see one of the reasons I wanted to talk with you. I mean, my oldest now is graduated from college, but I remember her being born like it was yesterday. And much like you, I was a nurse, a pediatric nurse. So I thought, oh, well, yeah, I'm set up for success here. And it was anything but. I was so overly anxious. I know that I passed those feelings of anxiety along to my daughter. And I feel like she had really bad colic. And there was one specific time she cried all the time. And I had so much shame about it because I thought, I should know. And you shared this in your book, a very similar story where your husband came home, your baby was crying. I had the same thing where I just found the courage to go out to a family gathering and my baby was crying and crying, crying. And I remember a relative who was very well meaning who came up and said, well, what's wrong? You're her mom. You should know. And I thought, I don't know. So clearly I'm failing as a mom. But I think that, having a baby, obviously, God's greatest gift, greatest blessing, such a wonderful time. But it also can be really, really hard. And you've described this fourth trimester, this time of after having baby, as a shaking and an awakening. Can we talk really honestly about how it can be really difficult too?
Yes. It's such a challenge. And of course, it is the challenge that changes us, right? Like, it helps us be shaped into becoming this mom and all the things that motherhood requires. But it very much is a shaking. And just a bit from a scientific perspective, like, we know that a woman's brain literally changes during pregnancy and childbirth, like pathway shift, chemical shift, all these things are actually happening in us. And so it takes time for all those things to level out. So it's not just oh, why am I struggling? Or why is this hard? Or this feels different. Like, I don't feel like myself. Like, all of those things are very valid because they're actually true. Like, these things are really shifting inside of you. And I call it a shaking and awakening because it does really feel like that shaking. You kind of feel like you're not standing on super firm ground at times. Your baby's crying, like you said, and you're like, what do? I feel like I should know what to do, but I don't. So does that mean I'm failing or I'm not a good mom? And it doesn't. Of course, it doesn't mean those things. But the awakening part, I think, really comes in because we have this opportunity during this time. It's like, okay, here we are. We're in this struggle. All these things are coming to the surface. All these beliefs of, am I failing? Or, I'm not good enough. Like, these things that maybe we already struggled with, but now they are very much wide open for us to look at. And it's like, we just have this opportunity to go, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to build in a healthy way moving forward?
I think that's so encouraging. And one of the things you encourage families to do in your book is to make a growing family mission statement. And I think sometimes, when you are just in the everyday thick of things, you're in the middle of the diaper changes and the midnight feedings and all of those kinds of things, it can be easy to lose sight of what you're trying to do as a family. So can you talk a little bit about what you see as a growing family mission statement?
Yes, so we just got really down to the basics with this. This idea comes from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And it was just so revolutionary to our family because it's so easy to get caught up in the everyday life, especially during that time frame. We're, like you said, diaper changes and we're sleep deprived. And it's so easy to just kind of start this like resentment, bickering, separation, distance kind of thing among us in the family because, again, so many things are happening within us at the time. But just coming together and go, okay, what are our goals? What are our goals for this time? For us, it's something really simple. It's, choose connection, say no to fear, kind of a thing. And it's like in those moments when I could feel my temperature rising, when I was up again in the middle of the night and my husband's beside me snoring, and I'm so tired. And it's like, okay, am I going to choose to be resentful right now, or am I going to choose connection in this moment? And it really is those little decisions along the way, because we have so many opportunities. Like we can get resentful if we want to, because nobody's going to do this perfect, right? And it's just important to, okay, what are our goals? What is our mission statement? And let's be sure that we are living by this.
That's powerful. I mean, that's just such a short statement. Choose connection, say no to fear. But how powerful is it if you're saying that to yourself, just like you said, when you're waking up in the middle of the night? I loved it. As a side note, Rachel, I loved it when my kids started saying dad, dad before they say mama. Now, I didn't share that, that's because it's just an easier consonant to say. But I remember telling my husband one night, oh, honey, they want you. I mean, I would go, but really they're calling you. And so that would be there. But, I think in that we have women having babies today. And one of the things that I see talking about, when you have the temptation to be resentful or to be fearful, one of the things that I see today, Rachel, that really bothers me is so much negativity being spoken over new moms. And this is what I mean by that. When women are having babies, I see people in the grocery store literally saying things to pregnant women like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not raising kids in today's day and age. Oh, I'm so glad I'm not bringing kids into a world like this. Oh, and just speaking these kind of negative feelings about having kids. Do you see this happening? And how do you see this playing into that postpartum journey or anxiety or expectations about what that fourth trimester, those first days are going to look like?
Oh, yes, definitely. And you had mentioned social media. Like that's a huge thing right now, is that, and there's this whole group too on social media that really shares the negative aspects of motherhood. And we have to be careful and guard ourselves against that kind of thing, because it's not that we can't say and admit this can be really hard. Like, it's important to be honest about that. But when we dwell on, well, these are the negative aspects, we don't get to do this or we don't get to do that, it's so easy for resentment to begin to build in us. And I've had moms come to me and go, I realized that after spending time watching these things, I'm resenting my children, and it's like, man, it's so important. We've got to be able to guard what's in front of our eyes, what we're looking at on a day-to-day basis, because it can either feed that resentment, feed the fear and the anxiety and all that, or it can feed peace and love and the greatness that is motherhood. But people are so quick to share their opinions, like you said, just in the grocery store. And I remember even in pregnancy, that's really hard, because people would come up to me and be like, let me tell you what went wrong in my birth, and it's like,
Yes.
well, I'm about to give birth. Like, why in the world would you walk up to me and just tell me that, But the more I even did research for this book, I realized too that a lot of women that dealt with things themselves, they actually find like a healing and a solace in just repeating their story. So they're doing it in a way that isn't super helpful, but I think in just them repeating their own story, it's actually helping them process themselves. So I try to keep that perspective too. Like when that happens to friends or women that I'm taking care of, and they come to me and they're like, this was said to me today. And I'm just like, oh, I'm so sorry. Here's what's probably happening on their end. And that helps a little bit. But yes, goodness, the words that get spoken, for sure.
Well, we'll talk much more about that, about words that can be helpful to new moms and ways that communities can engage. We'll talk about Rachel's concept of the team, the weekenders, and the community when we come back, and more about mom guilt and comparison syndrome, really giving you insight into the world of a new mother and how we can best support her physically, spiritually, and emotionally for recovery. We'll be back with Rachel Taylor in just a minute.
for your walk with Jesus. I'm David Wolin with Haven Today, inviting you to anchor your day in God's Word. It's amazing how quickly and easily weeds grow. There are some weeds that grow close to the good plants, mimicking their appearance. Others send their roots down deep and intertwine them with the roots of the good plants. So there's no way around it. If you want fruitfulness, you have to pull the weeds often and quickly. In the parable of the sower, Jesus talked about the seed that fell among the weeds and the thorns. He explained to his disciples, this is what it's like when someone hears the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, making it unfruitful. So don't wait. Pull those spiritual weeds that are choking your walk with Jesus, and you'll get more encouragement to follow him at haventoday.org.
Do you believe in the absolute inerrancy of God's holy word? Do you believe in the power of the Holy Spirit to radically change lives and empower us to live like Christ? At Wesley Biblical Seminary, we believe God is raising up a movement of people across our nation and across the world who hold fast to the authority of the Bible and the hope of holiness. We are working today to equip tomorrow's pastors and Christian leaders through biblical and theological education and practical ministry that's accredited, affordable, online, and highly personal. Our programs include undergraduate, master's, and doctoral degrees, certificate programs, and even training for lay people. So whatever your next step is in being equipped for ministry, we're here for you. And if you believe these are the kinds of pastors we need leading our churches in the future, we invite you to learn more about partnering with us through giving. Learn more about Wesley Biblical Seminary by visiting us at wbs.edu today.
One of the most well-known verses in the Bible is also one of the hardest to explain. That verse is Ephesians 2:8, which says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith." It's not easy to define exactly what grace is. Even the great theologian Augustine struggled to define it. He said, "What is grace? I know until you ask me, but when you ask me, I do not know." A helpful way to think about grace is the simple acronym GRACE, God's riches at Christ's expense. The riches of God's love and forgiveness are offered freely because of what Christ accomplished on the cross. This is David Jeremiah encouraging you to get on the road to new life. Discover God's grace on Route 66.
Route 66, driving the word home. Log on to Route66Life.com. Start your journey home today.
Oh Lord, I need you now more than ever. Would you put my heart back together? I searched the world till my head hurt just to find out your ways better. Oh, oh, your ways better. Oh, oh, your ways better. Oh Lord, your ways better. Jesus, your ways better. Lord,
Welcome back, friends. That is Your Ways Better by Forrest Frank. How many of you are now singing in your head about Jesus making lemons into lemonade? That is Forrest Frank's new hit. So exciting to see that as a #1 song across all genres. And we are praising God for his miraculous recovery from a broken back. If you haven't read that story, ask some young person about it. They will tell you it is pretty amazing. And today we're talking about the story that is written after moms have babies. And when you ask a new mom, what can I do to help? She might not even know where to start. She may not feel like she can yet express that need. And that's where you can come in. And so in just a few minutes here, Rachel Taylor is going to continue giving you some simple, powerful ways to step in. Things that really lighten the load, ease recovery, bring peace into her home. That might be a really delicious meal. That might be giving some baby snuggles. You might be surprised how the smallest acts of love matter the most. And I really encourage you, if you know a new mom, get this book for a baby shower. It's a great resource, a faith-based Christian perspective on the postpartum period. And it's called After Baby Comes: Physical, Spiritual, and Emotional Recovery for Postpartum Moms. And so Rachel, as an experienced nurse, you and I are both experienced nurses, and we both worked in postpartum and newborn nurseries for a long time. And before the break, we were talking about just how we can come around moms who have babies because they want help, but sometimes they don't know what help they want. And sometimes they think they want help, and then maybe I don't want help with that. And it can be really sensitive with the family dynamics, especially the in-laws and the parents and the cousins and all of that. I'll give you a quick personal story. When I had my oldest daughter, she was the first baby in a new generation, and everybody was so excited. But I had a very difficult birth experience, and I was definitely not wanting to receive guests, but that's all that I had is people just wanting to come by the hospital. I mean, by the dozens, and thinking, okay, I just need you all to go away and give me just a moment to recover. But then, it feels like there's just all kinds of sensitive emotions that go with that. And so how do we step into that and start to really take the focus off of ourselves and think, how can we really support this new mom and this new growing family?
Yes, so that's such a good question because there's so many dynamics that go on, and I think if you can have the conversation ahead of time too, like as the mom, as the dad, what are we comfortable with? What do we want? And communicate that to the family as well, because most of the time they want to be there for you. They want to help, but we run into a good bit. They don't know how to help, or they think they're being helpful, but they're missing the mark a little bit. And a lot of times we're not feeling our best, so we're not able to communicate that super well with them too. So there can just be a lot of a lot of miscommunication, things like that. But I had a grandmother, she was a brand new grandmother, and she shared this with me. I thought it was so powerful. Is she said, my daughter-in-law is the type of person that I know she's not going to tell me she doesn't like something. She said, I could bring her the worst casserole in the whole world, and she's going to pretend that she enjoyed it. She said, I just know that about her. And she said, so I'm going to give her permission to set boundaries with me. And I thought, wow, that is really beautiful because it takes the load off of that daughter-in-law, that new mother's shoulders. Because, the grandmother came to her and said, hey, I give you permission to set boundaries with me. I want you to tell me, what you want or need or what you don't want or need. And that just, as somebody too that has struggled in that area, to really deal with conflict and set boundaries and things like that, that is just such a beautiful helpful thing for somebody to take the initiative and say that.
I think when you offer respect for those boundaries, even if maybe you don't agree with them, it really helps a new mom to feel safe because they're trying to figure out their boundaries and their new role as parents and what say do they have and what say do they not have. And I've seen many times where parents, in-laws, other family members, they'll respect those boundaries and helps that new mom to feel safe. And then they're invited in more. And it's a really beautiful act of service. And you talk about this a little bit in thinking about your team when you're going to have a baby, and you divide it into the team, the weekenders, and the community. Can you break that down for us?
Yes, absolutely. So, when you first have a baby, you have, and I liken it to like when you're getting married and you have your maid of honor and then you have your bridesmaids and you have the wedding guest and all that. Well, not everybody's going to be in that room with you as you're putting on your wedding dress that day. You have very specific people. And the same is true for when you have a baby because, you are healing, you have all the things happening and you're trying not to be super vulnerable and all of that, and just going ahead and having these conversations with these people, knowing, if, okay, I'm comfortable nursing around them and things like that. Like these are the people you really want around you, especially the first few days after birth. And like you had mentioned at one point too about being in the hospital and there being so many people coming in to see you. And sometimes that can be a good time to like get everybody in at once, but then sometimes it's like, actually, I need the space, and having that conversation. And sometimes dad is really good at this too. It takes the pressure off of mom, but for him to step in and just say something like, hey, we're so excited to see you, but we will be ready for visitors in 2 weeks. And that's just a communication with everybody. This is the expectation, and it's hard when you're on the visitor end. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's hard to hear you don't get to come over and see this baby for 2 weeks. It feels like a super long time, but just knowing too, it's never personal. It's never like a personal, we don't want to see you kind of a thing. It's really just hey, we're healing, we're trying to figure things out, we're trying to trust our own instincts. And like you said, when those boundaries are respected, it actually invites you into a deeper place.
It absolutely does. And Rachel, let's talk about dads for a minute, because I think that, it's so interesting, the dynamic shift. You have been there. I have been there. When a mom is expecting, everything is about her. The shower is for her. Everybody's worried about how she's feeling, how are things going. And then as soon as that baby is born, it's like, you are forgotten. Like, goodbye. It's all about the baby. And I think, just as much as moms can be forgotten in this, dads can be forgotten too. And dads do things differently. You talked a lot in your book about, I struggled with this too. So, and again, I thought, oh, I'm a pediatric nurse, and just trying to watch my husband do something as simple as give the baby a bath and thinking, I could do that so much more efficiently, so much more comfortably, please just let me do it. But recognizing that God created babies to need moms and dads. What advice do you have in general for the dads, and how we can support dads in this new family as well?
Yes, if we can get dads around other new dads and even seasoned fathers, letting them know they're doing a good job. And I think churches can play a big role in that, and small groups, and, having support groups for these people that are in this season of life. But for my new dads too, I just love to encourage them to get in there. Be intentional, give her support, even if she doesn't ask you for it, because a lot of times we don't know to ask. We don't even know what we need. We just know we need something, and new dads do have a tendency to kind of back away, and not with ill intention or anything like that, but they see mom doing it and they just kind of get this thought of, well, she does it better. I just need to let her do it, and so they'll kind of move back. And I think us moms too have to be careful that we don't overstep and here, I'll just change the baby's diaper, because it's faster and they're not screaming and all that kind of stuff. But letting dad practice being a dad, and we know, that bond happens when they spend time together. We know that dads are causing things to develop in babies that moms aren't doing. We can't do, like you said, we were designed differently for different reasons. But I just love to encourage my dads, like, even if it feels like you're kind of fumbling around or you're not really sure what you're doing, or she even does it better, just jump in there. Just, hey, I've got the diaper change this time. Hey, I'm going to go get you the burp cloth and I'm going to burp the baby. Whatever it may be, it's just so encouraging to see them doing that.
It absolutely is. And I think one thing that's hard for dads is that some moms do struggle with postpartum depression or baby blues. And there's a difference between postpartum blues and postpartum depression. And that can be really hard for dads, first of all, to recognize it and to speak into that, because sometimes, many times, we see women who are so overwhelmed by all of the changes that they're having. They don't even recognize that, oh, maybe I'm having some postpartum baby blues or some postpartum depression. And then dads, what I see is that they feel helpless and they want to step in and do what dads do, what men and husbands do, what fathers do, to fix it. And it's not something that can be fixed easily. And I've heard from several dads who say, how can I help? What should I do in that situation? So can you walk us through, Rachel, what would be the signs of postpartum blues, baby blues versus depression? And how should dads step into that to be supportive during that journey?
Yeah. So baby blues usually happen the first 3 weeks after delivery. That's when we see that. And that's not a disorder. It's just a transitional time. It's temporary. It's mom's had a baby, she's exhausted, hormones are up and down and all over the place, and things are just leveling out. It's like a 3-week level out kind of a period. After that, though, if it continues past that, we may be looking at postpartum depression or other disorders, and that's when it either lingers or it gets a lot worse. So excessive just worrying or intrusive thoughts is a big one, like intrusive thoughts that feel traumatizing. So let's say, for instance, she is having these thoughts that she's going to drop the baby down the stairs. Well, that's very unrealistic. Mom's arms is one of the safest place for babies to be, but it's not uncommon to have that kind of a thought. So it would be like if she can't shake this thought, it's keeping her up at night, she feels traumatized by it, then we're looking at, okay, we probably need some intervention, some help, that sort of a thing. And honestly, dads tend to recognize this before moms even do. Like, we're kind of can't see the forest for the trees type of a thing, and dads will notice, she's not acting right. They may even ask, like, are you doing okay? Like, do you need something? And she responds with, well, yeah, I'm fine. But she's not she's not fine. So you can't totally just go on what she says during this time, because a lot of times we just don't identify it ourselves. And so I've taken care of patients before where it was actually the husband that stepped in and said, hey, we're going to call the doctor today, and let's just check and make sure that everything's okay. And even if she objected to that, he has permission. He gets to call too, and he would just ask, this is what's going on. Is this common? Do we need to do something? And so in those ways, I think it's really important for dads to know, like, you can step in that way. You can call and get just some extra advice and help. And then to know, and this is a big one, Jessica, to know that just because she's struggling doesn't mean that you as a dad, as a husband, are failing or doing something wrong. That is huge, because oftentimes dads will, the wife will be struggling, she'll be dealing with anxiety, and they'll say something like, well, it's no big deal. Like, you don't need to get treated for this. You don't need to call the doctor. And when I probe a little bit deeper, it's actually this thing inside of them that's like, well, if she's struggling, then I must be failing at this. And that just is not true in any way. It is not a reflection of these dads, these husbands, that you're not doing a good job if she's struggling. There's so much under the surface going on. So I think it's really important that they know that. Know it's not a reflection of you. Know that you can step in if you need to step in. Call her OB, her midwife, her healthcare provider, ask questions. And it's a struggle, because dads will feel powerless, and it puts them prone to dealing with depression as well, blues as well, because it's a tough season. It's temporary, but it's a tough season where it's like, I don't know how to fix this. How long is this going to last? But it is temporary. I think that's important to know.
I think as other supportive people, as friends, as family, as grandparents, aunts, uncles, all gather around, everybody's so anxious to give advice, and everybody wants to speak into what does that look like and what should you say. And sometimes it can be really helpful just to give encouragement. And in your book, you talked about this little cartoon called Bluey, which actually is a really adorable little cartoon about a family, a mom, a dad, two little children. And you talked about one of the lines from this cartoon, which sounds so silly, but you said that the mom looks at the daughter and says, hey, there's something you need to know. You're doing great. I thought that was such a powerful way. And so many times when we want to offer advice, I think if we just asked ourselves, are we providing encouragement? Because I'm telling you, Rachel, I would pay somebody to stand in the corner of my house just for every 10 or 15 minutes or so when I'm in the thick of motherhood, just to say, hey, you need to know something. You're doing great. Because your kids don't usually say that, your spouse, you don't usually say that. And I think just pausing to give each other affirmation and then looking at biblical affirmations of that, just say, hey, you know what? You're doing great. Hey, even if you don't feel like it, you're doing great in changing those diapers. You're doing great in those midnight feedings. You are doing great in giving all of those baby snuggles. Anything that you see, you're doing great. I think that is really encouraging. You also talked about a truth about measuring your own worth by another's opinion, and we'll talk about that when we come back. I also want to talk to you, Rachel. There's so many things I want to talk to you about, but we'll also talk about siblings and how do we prepare siblings, especially especially after a new baby comes in, when we're talking about the whole family. This is a way that grandparents can really help. So more with Rachel Taylor when we come back. More about her book, After Baby Comes. See you on the other side of this break.
When you hear this
is American Family News.
You know what follows is the truth. Your news from a Christian perspective.
Hundreds of teachers are going to have to walk into that school building, and they are forced to swallow political ideology that in many cases violates their very faith and conscience.
If you miss it at the top of the hour, American Family News podcasts are available at afn.net. And sign up for our daily news brief at afn.net. Are you a new small group leader looking for a strong curriculum? Even if you've been a leader for years, there's always a need for tools to help you as you help others deepen their love for God and their Bible knowledge. AFA Stream is a great resource. With topics covering biblical worldview training, godly marriage, and more, you'll have access to some of the best teaching available. And if you're a Great Commission partner, you open up even more. Visit stream.afa.net today. Stream.afa.net.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
Hi, my name's Neil. I have some advice for you if you've been trying to break free from credit card debt. You can start by doing what I did. Get your bills together and call Trinity Debt Management. Trinity is dedicated to helping people like me become debt-free. When I called, my first experience was a feeling of relief. My counselor was kind, and best of all, she didn't judge me. In just a few minutes, she helped me figure out a plan that consolidated all my bills into one lower monthly payment. This substantially reduced my high interest rates and put me on the road to success. In the end, I saved thousands in interest, and today, my credit card debt is a thing of the past.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Neil. Take it from someone who's been there. Call Trinity and become debt-free for keeps.
1-800-788-1813.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hey, we're going to the Holy Land on a tour in March of 2026. We can't wait to go back. My wife Allison and I have been leading these tours for over 2 decades, nearly 3 decades. And we're going in March of 2026 to Israel. See all the places that you've read about since you were a child in the Bible. Bethlehem, Jerusalem, the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River, all of it. We'll be going there. And now also my sons Walker and Wesley Wildman will be going to Greece on a Footsteps of Paul tour. You can do either the Holy Land trip or the Footsteps of Paul Greece tour, or both. For all the information on these tours, go to wildmangroup.com, WILDMON group.com, to get all the information on the 2026 March Israel and Greece tours.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. Every hour, every moment, I will sing. Thank you, Lord.
Welcome back, friends. That is Thank You by Highlands Worship. And you know, today I am thankful for all of the families who are bringing new life into the world. Having a baby is one of the most miraculous things that I've ever seen happen on the face of this planet. And we know that there are many people who are longing for a baby. And I just want to say here and now, if your journey is one of pregnancy loss or infertility, I would really encourage you to listen to the weekend show, Hannah's Heart, that is produced here by American Family Radio. We have had the host of that show on just recently and have had them on several times before, but that would be a great community for you. But today we are talking about that time after a new baby comes. And listen, let's be honest, it is a tough world to bring a baby into, but we need to support families with grace and hope and faith that God gave them this baby for such a time as this. And he who has started a good work will be faithful to complete it. And that is in their child and their parenting journey. And I'm really grateful today to be talking to a fellow nurse, Rachel Taylor. She is the author of a book called After Baby Comes: Physical, Spiritual, and Emotional Recovery for Postpartum Moms. I would encourage any grandmothers who are expecting a baby to take a read of this book just to get some perspective on what new moms are facing today. If you're going to a baby shower, this would be a great gift to add. And we're talking about that fourth trimester, the first few months after baby is born. And it's not just about diapers and feeding and laundry. It's about creating a safe space for that mom's heart and soul. And Rachel is here to help us think beyond the baby registry, but really into that holistic spiritual support. How do we listen? How do we encourage her? How do we remind her she's not alone? And how do we surround moms with faith and love and a community that they can lean on? Some of the things she covers is how to maintain your relationship with God, dismantling bounce back culture, and so many other things. It's really like a what to expect when you're expecting with a Christian perspective. And Rachel, before the break, we've been talking about grandparents, extended family, dads. Let's talk a little bit about siblings. You even have a chapter for siblings and pets, which are a big part of the family. And how do we prepare and help that part of the adjustment for big brothers and sisters and even pets that we may have had?
It for siblings really depends on age and what's age appropriate, and paying attention to, how do they do around other babies? Have they been around other babies and kids and things like that? How do they respond? And playing pretend can be so powerful for them. But I always tell moms, like, don't be alarmed if they take a baby doll and like throw it against a wall. Like, they're not going to do that in real life. They're learning and things, but that kind of stuff can scare mamas. But just helping them kind of learn to brush hair and safe sleep. Why do we do safe sleep? How do we do that? And being present after baby's actually there and encouraging them. And it goes a long way for them to experience praise. So like if they do brush baby's hair, for mom and dad to sit there and go, oh, he loves it. Like, great job. You're such a good big brother. It just helps them take ownership of that little baby. And I found that that can help them not feel resentful, now that mom and dad are spending extra time with this little baby, and then making special time for them too. If you used to go to the park on Saturday mornings or get donuts or something like that, how can we maintain that routine, where it's not so disruptive for these new little siblings? And then pets too, giving them space just to adjust as they need to, not forcing relationships, again, treats, lots of treats, if they behave, if they're gentle around the baby, if your big old Labrador doesn't knock the baby over, but comes in, like, sniffs the feet very gently, lots of praise and treats and things that can just help them. Oh, okay, this baby's a good thing,
Yes, and you're great about safety, about never leaving pets and babies alone, even if the pet has never had an issue before. I know I've seen some really scary circumstances happening that, and I'm appreciative of all of the guidance that you give in the book. So I encourage people to get a copy of that. And just looking at siblings, some of the things that I did, and some of these things were similar to what you recommended, Rachel, were having my kids get a gift when I had 4 kids. So my 3 younger ones got a gift. They all got a gift from the new baby that was born, and they still remember that. They still talk about that, and it made it something exciting. But some other things that I found really helpful for feeding time. That's when I was going to have toddlers who were going to make mischief because they wanted attention. So I had a special box of toys that was just for feeding time. Oh, it's time for feeding time. So it wasn't something that they resented, but something they looked forward to. And even, there were some older sibling classes taught by nurses that taught them how to swaddle and cuddle safely, and all of those kinds of things I think are really powerful. And this is where grandparents can really come in handy, because you shared a story, Rachel, in your book about a friend coming over to your house after you had had a baby and it did not go as you expected. I want to pause right there and let you tell the story about how your friend was well-intentioned, but maybe not so kind. And then I'll say how I think that relates to grandparents and siblings.
Yeah, so she just had some misguided expectations of what it was going to be like when she came over. My house was always one where you could talk about anything and we'd sit over coffee and, it was just a heart to heart kind of a thing. But now I was a new mom and I was also pregnant at that time and very sick and could not stand the smell of coffee. So I definitely wasn't doing that. And, she came over and it surprised her and she decided to let me have it because she thought it would help me, to see the error of my ways. But what it did was actually destroy me and just cut me into pieces because, I mean, most of us know where we're feeling inadequate, or we know that the bathtub needs to be scrubbed or the rug needs to be vacuumed. We can see all those things. And so to have somebody come over and point that stuff out, can really hurt. Whereas I would recommend, like, if you're a friend or a grandparent or something like that, and you see things that need to be done, just jumping in there and doing them. Oh, can I vacuum your rug for you? What would be helpful for you? Do you want me to do your dishes? Something like that is just a totally different feel. It's like a sigh of relief instead of an anxious, like, what are they going to notice? What have I not done perfectly? How do I need to perform here? We don't want to set it up where this person that we love and we're coming to visit and see feels like they have to perform or be perfect. We want to do the opposite, where they feel comfortable and like they can be themselves and real.
I want to read to our listeners a quote from your book when you talked about that. I thought it was so wise and so brave of you to share that experience, because that is what happens. And you said this, you said, here's the truth though. It's never wise to measure your own worth by another's opinion. And here's another truth. Someone else's reaction to your mess says more about what's happening in their heart than it does in yours. And here it is inserting I don't know if anyone's seen the show Everybody Loves Raymond, but I'm feeling like this is Marie Barone walking in, and giving these kind of commentary. But you said this then. You said, I no longer had the capacity for what was once normal in my home. I thought this was such a brilliant statement, Rachel, because I think that's what women think when they have babies. And if they've got, so this goes back to siblings. So they're thinking, okay, when I used to be fully engaged in playtime on the floor or have more time for the older siblings, I don't have the capacity for that because now I have a baby that I'm trying to feed and take care of. And I feel like this is where in-laws, where relatives, friends can really come in and think, okay, where is that capacity? What do you no longer have the capacity to do? You can't go to the park now because, of whatever reason. So, hey, I can take your older sibling, the older sibling to the park, still provide them with a little bit of that norm, but recognize that it's okay that you don't have the capacity to do that in this moment. I just feel like that was a really just profound statement, just realizing that you don't have the capacity for that. Maybe you will one day in the future, or maybe it'll be a new normal. And Rachel, one of the things I love about your book and your resources is that you just integrate faith into everything seamlessly. What do you think the church can do better in supporting new moms?
Yeah, I love this question. And I actually have a friend who read the book and she said, okay, how can I incorporate this into my church? And she went to the pastors and she was like, hey, I really feel like there's room for us to support new moms better. And they were like, yes, please, let's do that. How do you do that? But she created a support group that would meet just 45 minutes before church actually started. And so new moms could come and she would pick something every week just to kind of lead the conversation if it needed to be led, but to provide a space for them to be around other moms in that season of life, to just come and be, bring your baby. It's fine if they're crying. It's not a big deal. We're all there. And they made this room for new moms. So with rocking chairs and like protein bars and waters and just things new moms need, they created this beautiful space for them. And I thought, wow, that is so powerful because postpartum can feel so isolating. Like you can feel totally alone. You go to church, but even there, you have a few minutes of kind of meet and greet. There's just not a lot of time to actually do life during that time, and to create the space, the opportunity for moms to come and just be who they are with other moms in that season of life is great. And they're also doing like nesting parties, which I thought was so cool. Like she's like, oh, this mom's about to have a baby. She's 3 weeks out. Okay, we're all coming to your house and we're going to help you clean. Or we're all doing your postpartum meal prep together, where we're stocking your freezer. And I was like, that is just hands and feet of Jesus right there for new moms, what they need, But I loved those ideas.
Those are absolutely great ideas. And, Rachel, you have a whole community, and I would love for you to share, because I know there are people listening who either are new moms or who know new moms, and they need to be connected to your community. Where can they find you?
So mamadidit.com is my website. That's MAMA did it, because you're doing it, .com. That's a great place to find just blogs and resources and coaching and tips and all those things. And then my Instagram too, Mama Did It Official. I put lots of free tips and things like that on there too, just to be a place of encouragement and support for new moms. So both of those are great places.
I think, what you said earlier just really resonates with me about moms looking for trusted sources of information. And you and I both know that nursing is ranked as the most trusted profession by Gallup every year. And that, we are there in the most sacred spaces of welcoming life into the new world. And it is a trusted source. And I will tell you, I've read Rachel's book, and it tells you everything you could possibly want to know as a new mom about, again, the way that you'll change physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. It's all there. But Rachel, if a mom could only hear one thing from you in her postpartum season, what would you want it to be? What message would you give?
It would be to give yourself grace. Like we are so hard on ourselves, and we give other new moms all of this grace, but we tend to not give it to ourselves. We really give ourselves a hard time, where we think we're failing or we're not good enough, or you could have done that better, all those kinds of things. And it's just reminding ourselves to like, I am doing the best that I know how to do right now. I did my best today, and that's enough. I'm meeting with Jesus in this 2 minutes that I have, and that's enough. All of those things, knowing that this season is temporary, and you need to love yourself well to be the best mom you can be.
You absolutely do. And a great step to doing that would be to get a copy of your book. Rachel, I'm so grateful for your voice in this space. It is so wonderful to hear your perspective as a nurse, but also as a Christ follower, and looking at us as holistic human beings. And this is something that, as we were talking about during the break, childbirth is a tale as old as time. It's something that has been going on for a long time, but to have your trusted voice in this space, I'm very, very grateful. And if you are supporting a new mom in this season, I encourage you to pray for their family. Just pray for them. Just lift them up in prayer. And just as Rachel just encouraged new moms to give themselves grace, I encourage you to give new families grace as they adjust. It's so hard to differentiate all of those boundaries and what does this look like? And I want to be the parent, but I'm not sure what it's like to be the parent. I want to be the best mom I can be, but I'm just figuring it out. Listen, the book again is called After Baby Comes: Physical, Spiritual, and Emotional Recovery for Postpartum Moms. Thanks for listening in, especially if this is not you, but you know someone. Just pray for moms who are bringing new life into the world. It is such a beautiful mission. And as you do, I pray that the Lord will bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you and give you peace. And I'll see you right back here tomorrow.